Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review. And in this edition, we'll be talking about the San Diego Chargers at the San Francisco 49ers and their Week 16 matchup, which you can catch on Saturday, December 20th at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And that will be aired on the NFL Network as well as CBS. And coming into this game, the Chargers are 8-6. They still have playoff hopes alive. And the Niners, although they're not going to make it to the playoffs, they're 7-7, and you can bet they want to try to stop the Chargers from sliding into the AFC playoffs. Of course, the Chargers are going to need some help to do that, but they definitely cannot afford to lose this game. And this is Upon Further Review. What you're watching is Madden gameplay. I played as the Chargers against the Niners. I'm taking the Chargers in this game, and that's the highlights from the Madden gameplay. And I'm going to go over the numbers, and we'll see how these two teams got to this point. And the Chargers started off in Week 1 in Arizona against the Cardinals, the team that has the best record in football right now, heading into Week 16. And they lost by just 1 point. And that's when the Cardinals, they were pretty much at full strength right at the beginning of the season. That was part of the doubleheader they had on Monday Night Football, the first Monday Night Football. They had the early game, and I think that was New York and Detroit. And then they had the Cardinals and the Chargers, and it was a 1-point game, 18-17. But after that, the Chargers went on a 5-game winning streak. They ended up hosting the defending Super Bowl champions, the Seahawks, in Week 2, and they beat them by 9 points. Then they went to Buffalo, and they beat the Bills, something the Packers weren't able to do last week. And they hosted the Jaguars in Week 4. They beat them pretty handily. And then they hosted the Jets, and they shut them out 31-0. And then in Week 6, they went to Oakland, and they beat the Raiders, although it was only by 3 points. But that was the 5-game winning streak. But then they went on a 3-game losing streak. And that started in Week 7 with a loss at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, their division rivals. And then they went against their other division rivals, the Denver Broncos, as it was 3 AFC West games in a row, starting off with the Oakland game they won, but then they lost against the Chiefs in San Diego. Then they went to Denver, and they lost that game by 2 touchdowns. That was on Thursday Night Football. It was a little closer than the score indicated, but in Week 9, they went to Miami, and they got shut out. So they had shut out the Jets in Week 5, but then they get shut out in Week 9 by Miami. So they shut out one AFC East team, then got shut out by another, 37-0. And that was the explanation point on that 3-game losing streak. But then they had their bye week. They got things together, and they came out the bye week strong. And they started off with a 3-game winning streak coming out of that bye week. And that started off with a home win against Oakland as they swept the season series against the Raiders. And then they beat the Rams. It was a really tough St. Louis team. They beat them by 3 points. That was in San Diego. And then in Week 13, they went to Baltimore, and they beat the Ravens by 1 point. They came from behind, and it was quite an impressive win on the road in Baltimore. But then in Week 14, the Patriots came to San Diego, and they lost that game. A tough loss against one of the best teams, and they held them to just 23 points, but they were only able to put 14 on the scoreboard themselves. And then Week 15, they faced the other big powerhouse in the AFC, the Broncos, their division rivals. They came into San Diego, and the Chargers lost that game. 2 tough losses in a row against 2 very tough teams, especially coming off that big win against Baltimore. But you really can't, there's no shame in losing the Patriots and the Broncos. But now the Chargers are going to have to get in the tough way. They got 2 road games left to play. No more home games left. They're going to have to win in San Francisco, and then they're going on the road to Kansas City next week against their division rivals, the Chiefs. But here in this game against the Niners, definitely will not be an easy game. And let's look at the Niners' schedule thus far and how they got to this point. And they started off with a big win in Dallas in Week 1. But then in Week 2, they lost to the Bears. That was in San Francisco, their home opener in the new stadium, ELiAS Stadium. They went on the road then, and they lost to the Cardinals in Arizona. Then in Week 4, they got their first win in ELiAS Stadium in the regular season, and that was against the Philadelphia Eagles. And a crazy game. The Eagles actually had the top fantasy points for defense that week because their special teams, their offense didn't even put up any points. And the Niners got the win 26-21. In week 5, they beat the Chiefs, also in San Francisco, their second win in Levi Stadium. And then they went to St. Louis and they beat the Rams, their division rivals, on Monday Night Football. This is a stretch where they won 3 games in a row to even up their record. Well, actually to go to 4-2. And then they went to Denver and they got blown out by the Broncos in week 7, and they had their bye week. And then coming out the bye week, they hosted the Rams and they lost a tight game. And that would actually bring their record to 500 at 4-4. They're losing those 2 games in a row. And that came down to the final play. It was a crazy play there, goal line stand. They ended up losing that game in really upsetting fashion if you're a 49ers fan. And then they went on a 3-game winning streak, though. They bounced back with wins in New Orleans and in New York. That win in New Orleans was in overtime, an impressive win against the Saints, and then against the Giants in New York, and then against the Redskins, and that was in San Francisco. But since then, they haven't won a game, because they've been on a 3-game slide, and things are just going on the downturn. They were actually, they have moments where, they were 4-2, things were looking good, but then they ended up 4-4. Then they were 7-4, but then now they 3-game slide. They're 7-7. They're out the playoffs, and of course, 2 of those 3 losses came against the Seahawks, as the Seahawks swept the season series against the Niners. First on week 13, that Thursday night game, and then the Niners went to Oakland, the Battle of the Bay, and they lost to the Raiders. And the Raiders, they haven't. That was only their 2nd win of the season, and then they end up going to Seattle in week 15 and losing by double digits again to the Seattle Seahawks. A tough defensive battle both times, but their offense just wasn't able to get anything done. Of course, the troubles in the locker room has been all over the media. All the, word is that Harbaugh's gone after this year, even though he's a great coach. And really, during times in this season, they had chances to, make the playoffs, but things just didn't come together. A lot of that, like I said, it's through that turmoil and I don't know if it's between the GM and the ownership and the coach and the players. I don't know what's going on there. Only they know, but we all know that there is trouble, and Harbaugh is going to be out of San Francisco. Good for him, because he's a good coach and he doesn't need to be putting up with all that. I don't know why they have a problem with having such a great coach. He's done an amazing job with the Niners. But even still, they're not going to win this game. I don't think so. Both teams are banged up. They've both been having lots of injury issues all year long. That's kind of a big thing going into this game. The Chargers are without Keenan Allen, and they're without Ryan Matthews. They're also without their punter. Even though in this gameplay, I tried to take the punter out the game, and somehow he ended up kicking off, if you noticed. I don't know if you did or not, but anyway, the Niners are also without a lot of players. I mean, they've already had tons of injuries, but recent injuries, they are going to be without Carlos Hyde, Steve Johnson's out again, Tremaine Brock, Chris Borland, who's been just eating up the tackles. He's been having an impressive year, as he's been, getting a lot of playtime due to other injuries, but now he's injured. As the injuries just keep piling up, between these two teams, as they've been very injury prone this season. That's a big reason why these teams are, on the outside looking in, and the Niners are already eliminated and not going to make the playoffs after having gone to, 3 or 4 NFC Championship games in a row. They were even in the Super Bowl a couple years ago against the Ravens, and now they're not even going to make the playoffs. But his injuries have caught up to him, and of course, when you play deep into the playoffs, you're kind of more injury prone because you're not getting that time to heal. Having an extended season for year after year after year after year. Then again, until that's to the Patriots, right? But the Chargers, they've also had a lot of injuries, but they're still in the hunt. They need to win this one. They're going to need some help too, but let's look at the numbers real quick. When it comes to passing yards per game, the Chargers are 11th in the NFL this season, and the Niners are 28th. So the Chargers, they can pass the ball. The Niners cannot pass the ball to save their life. And when it comes to passing defense, though, these teams are both top 10. The Chargers are 9th, and the Niners are 3rd. Both these teams have really good defense that do get overlooked quite a bit. They're very underrated on defense. But yeah, I have to give the edge, of course, to the San Diego Chargers in the passing, as they are a far better passing team on offense. And although the Niners are really good against the pass on defense, so are the Chargers. And so the advantage San Diego. When we look at the running attacks of these two teams, the Chargers are struggling to run the ball. They've had lots of injuries in their backfield. They're 31st in the NFL in rushing yards per game on average. San Francisco's 13th. They were higher up, but they've been falling off lately. But you can't give them the edge in the running, although they haven't been running it well. Like I said, lately they were running. When they win, they put up lots of running yards, and that's the key to success for the Niners. They're going to have a lot of success on the ground. They're really banged up. Even Frank Gore was a question going into this game, although he should be playing. We look at the running defense. The Chargers are 13th in yards allowed on the ground, and the Niners are 8th. So they're very close when it comes to their running defenses. They said they're very underrated on defense, both these two teams, but the edge goes to the Niners on the ground for sure with their offensive, running attack, whereas the Chargers, they don't really run the ball that often, and a lot of that has to do with the injuries. Of course, Ryan Matthews he's out again, so let's look real quick at points scored for these two teams. When it comes to points scored, they're not putting up a lot of points, either one of them. The Chargers are 17th in the NFL, putting up just 21.6 points per game, and the Niners are 28th in the NFL, putting up 17.9. So the Chargers score almost 4 points more, 3.7 to be exact. But they're putting up more points, almost more than a field goal more. So the Niners just struggling to get points on the scoreboard. But both these two teams, like I said, have underrated defense. And we look at their points allowed. The Niners are 9th in the NFL in points allowed. The Chargers are 11th. And the Niners only let up 20.4 points per game, and the Chargers let up 21. So it's a difference of 0.6 when it comes to how many points they allow. So you look at those numbers, that says the Chargers probably win by a field goal, at least according to the numbers anyway. And you see the Madden gameplay, we have the Chargers winning by quite a bit more than a field goal, although I don't think it's going to be quite that high scoring as it was in the Madden gameplay that we did. I think it's going to be a much lower scoring game. The Chargers can put up points though, but I don't see the Niners putting up much. Maybe they put up, I would expect more like 6 or 9 points from the Niners. Maybe they get into double digits. I don't see them breaking 20, that's for sure. Probably like low teens, if anything. If they get into double digits, that is. And the Chargers should be able to put up 20, but maybe the Niners hold them to around 17 with how good their defense is. But we'll see how it all plays out tonight. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think the Chargers will win? Do you think the Niners will win? Interested to read your thoughts and opinions. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want more content such as this, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and a good weekend, and enjoy all the sports.